So as you can see, I've already downloaded the file actually a couple times, and I'm going to go ahead and open it. And so what you need to do the deployment is you need to download the app. And you also need an account at myasp.net. And I'm going to go ahead and run a build on this. And then while that is building, you are going to want to log in to myasp.net. And then once you got that build, you're going to go into the Package Manager console. And you do need to do update database because we do have migrations and a database here. There is only one context file, so you don't need to worry about that. All you have to do is key in update database. Now, when this comes back, you are going to want to test out the app and make sure that it works. And I've already done this, but I would go into like file downloads. You may want to, delete a download or two, create a new one, find a file and upload it. Okay, and then go over. I'm going to delete this test one. And I'll create a new one. And I think this was Ghost 1. Okay, and here's my new test one, and I can kind of go in and check out the details. So this is definitely working, and I'm going to close out. So at this point, we've verified that everything works. Now we need to log into myasp.net. And when you log in, you'll be at a screen that looks something like this. And you need to get into the control panel. And for a free account, you can only have one website. If you pay, you get to have multiple websites. So you're going to add a new site. And you're going to call it RP Movies. I'm going to change it to My Movies because I already have RP Movies. Then whenever it comes back, we're going to have basically an empty website that we are going to be deploying our files to. And our next step is to create an empty database. So here's my new one. And this link actually takes you to the location where your site is going to be deployed to. Okay, so there's nothing there yet. We're going to go over to databases and choose MS SQL. And I'm going to add a database. And I'm going to make sure SQL 2019 is chosen, and I'm going to just name this the same thing as I did the site. And I'm going to use the same password that I am using at the site. That way I don't forget. And so this is going to create an empty database that when we deploy, it will actually add the tables. And in this case, with the Razor pages, it does not add your seed data, but it will create all your tables. You may notice that I've got one that I'm deleting. So you saw how easy it is to add a database. To delete, you just click on the ellipsis here and choose delete. So pretty easy to add and delete. So at this point, I got an empty database. I got an empty website. My next step is to go into my app. And I'm going to right click and edit some settings. So I have to go into Edit Project File. And there are some settings that we need to add here. The host has indicated that we need to add something to the property group. So below the target framework, I'm going to add ASP.NET Core Hosting Model. And then I'm going to put out of process. And I'm going to check my spelling because a typo here would not be good. And that looks okay, so I'm going to save it. Now, I should note here that the framework for the Razor page is Net 5, but if this was an MVC app, it would be Net Core 3.1 or something like that. So I've got this, I've saved it. I'm going to go ahead and close. And our next step is to actually go through the publish process. And when we go through this process, we are going to import our publish settings. So how do we get those? We have to go back out into my ASP.NET and we go into the website. And you find the website you added. And then if you click on this little up arrow, it says show web deploy info. Now, sometimes when you open this, the status is off and you have to click on it to get this expanded page. Okay, but you want to see this all expanded. And then next to publishing XML, click on get publish setting. Okay, and you can see that I have done this a couple times. This is in downloads. I'm going to go ahead and save it right in here. So this little publish setting file, I'm going to be importing into my project. So here's the project. I'm going to right click and go into publish. Now this should pop up right off the bat. If it doesn't, you can click on add a published profile, or you might even see a little button that you can click on to actually get this published dialog box. The little button says new. Okay, we're going to go ahead and choose import profile and next, and then we're going to browse. We have to find the file that we just downloaded, which is why I stick it in my project folder, because that is easy for me to find. And I'm going to click on finish. What it's going to do is it's going to populate some of the settings. And most of them are correct. We are going to have to enter a password, and we're going to have to customize the database settings. So there's two ways to get into your publish settings. Under more actions, you can click on edit, or you can just go into show all settings. Because either way, it takes you into this dialog box. And the first thing that we need to change is the connection. So you can kind of see it's filled in the settings, but it does not have our password. So we need to enter our password that we created for my ASP.NET. And I'm going to put a little check next to save it. And then to make sure that all of this is right and the password is right, you want to validate your connection. Okay, green check mark means everything is good. So then we're going to take a look at settings. And so what we need is to get the database settings from the host. Because right now this is filled in with my local DB settings, and that is not going to work online. Okay, so you'll notice that there's one for databases and one for entity framework migrations. If you had multiple context files, you would see them all here. The connection settings from the host need to go into each of these boxes. Okay, so we're going to go back out to our host. Going to go into databases and MS SQL. Okay, and then you're going to find the database. And we're going to retrieve that connection string. So it's this little button here. And the connection string we want is the one for ASP.NET. So right after the double quote, don't include the double quote, but right after it, you're going to drag and highlight everything, right click and copy. And close that. And then we're going to go into our app and we're going to paste right in the box. So I'm going to press Control and the letter V. And then I'm going to change the password to the password I set for the database, which happens to be the same as my login password. And I got to do the same thing down here. So I'm going to paste here as well. I'm going to turn this on. And now I'm going to fix this ending here. So I'm going to pause because this is supposed to be super secret, and then I'll come back. Alrighty, so I've entered both of those passwords, and I'm going to go ahead and save this. And then I'm going to go back in and make sure that everything was saved, because I've done this before and things didn't get saved and it didn't work. So you become paranoid after a while. So I'm just going to double check, make sure that everything looks correct. Okay, and I can see it's got cite for now, so I know that that worked. Okay, and this should have the same thing. Okay, so that all looks good. And the next step is just to hit publish. And you're going to see in your output window, it is going to start that whole publishing process. And when it is done, it is going to launch the app. So I'm going to pause while it's doing all this work, and I'll come back once that app is launched. So when it's done, you're going to see publish 1 succeeded. That is a good sign, and it's showing you where it published to, and it should automatically launch for you, and you can see that it did. And the seed data does not get populated here. So to test this, you actually are going to have to upload a file. Hopefully it's some kind of a movie file. And then you'll go over, you'll create a new movie entry. I mean, ideally, you know what the correct information for this is. Okay, and there's my entry. The details is working. The edit is working. Okay, and I could continue adding. Okay, so that's pretty much how you deploy. Now, what happens if you want to make a change? Super simple. Okay, once you get the thing deployed, okay, you can open it. You can make whatever change you want. You know, if you change the pages, anything in the pages, anything with the CSS, any of the controllers, all you have to do is hit publish again. If you change the model, okay, and you don't, if you change an attribute, you can still just hit publish, okay? But if you add to the model or you change any of the properties that affect the columns in the table, then you have to add a migration, you have to update the database, and then you can publish. So I'm just going to show you quick how super easy this is to make changes. It's pretty amazing. So here's my index page. This was like the splash page that you see when you first come into the app, okay? And so let's say I wanted to change the color. Hopefully this will work. And I think maroon might look nice. All right, let me save that. So I've made a change. I'm going to hit publish. And it kind of goes through this whole publishing process again. And it's going to launch the app when it's done. And then I should be able to see my change. So it's actually pretty slick. And the only thing you really have to remember is if you are going to change anything that's going to affect the database itself, you got to do the migration. You have to do update database. But then it's just a matter of hitting publish. And here you see that it did change the color to maroon. Okay, so hopefully you guys will not have any issues getting your apps deployed.